I had to change my background.
John, are we good?
Looks like we are.
Thanks for joining us today for Master Coaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show, Buzz Reaction. I'm Ruth Nelson, joined by Hall of Famers Mick Haley, Bob Bertucci, and Brian Gimolero, bringing you the most current issues and trends in volleyball. Our weekly news show has leaders in our sport provide their perspective on questions that are asked, along with the discussions on topics that are current and ones that are affecting all of us. Our news flash. Athletes Unlimited Women's Professional Volleyball ended this week with having 30 matches, 2,000 kills, 2,500 digs, 350 blocks, and 150 aces with over 750 hours of U.S. television and social media coverage. Jordan Larson winning the highest award for this inaugural season. Check out www.auprosports.com for all the results. This week's and next week's Buzz Reaction will have D3 and D2 guests to discuss the AVCA Division III Women's Invitational Tournament April 9th and 10th in Indianapolis and the AVCA Division II Women's Volleyball National Championships in Dallas, Texas, April 14th and 17th. For more details on today for our D3 guests and next week's show for D2, more details can be found at avca.org. Want to make a difference? AVCA, remember to renew your AVCA membership. This one organization that represents all coaches at all levels when lobbying for changes that are needed in our sport, and you can make a difference. Today, our guests will provide the insight into the Pablo Ranking, RPI, NCAA, and AVCA ranking, as well as his choices for the upcoming NCAA D1 Women's Championships. While the NCAA teams selection will be coming up this weekend. So let's head over to Austin, Texas with former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our guest today. Mick?
Thank you, Ruth. This is a great show today. This is all volleyball, and this is really special. We have Rich Kern on today, richkern.com, a website that was started. I don't know if your wife helped you or not, Rich, but I think all good guys have wives help them out and make sure that they don't make mistakes. Way back when, in the old days, when we were coaching, we couldn't get scores, and only place we could go was Rich Kern. He had scores from everywhere in the world, and if we needed to know something, we looked to Rich Kern. Rich, welcome to be on our show. Tell us how you got into this shortly, if you can, because we got some real important questions to ask you, and where you are now with the website and the business.
Well, thank you for your introduction, Nick. I got started actually on the web in 1995 when I started a volunteer site for the Husker Volleyball. I had done a search on Yahoo, and there was only 8 websites in the world that were involved in 1995. So, and Nebraska wasn't one of them, Penn State was. So I had to get us on there. So I did that for 4 years. And by that time, then Huskers had their site. And so I started richkern.com in 1999 and been doing it ever since.
That's a pretty good story. Now, you don't just do scores, though. You do a lot of different things.
Yes, thanks to lots of other help that I have. The main things, 3 main things I have is scores, rankings, and recruits. I get recruits from coaches, from club coaches, club programs, the fans, parents, athletes themselves. And that's used a lot for the parents to so they can see where their child is and where they want to send theirs relative to where other schools that are getting recruits that they're sort of taught. Then the scores, of course, I get those from a lot of different sources. Mainly There's 3 of us that go out to all the websites and collect them on a nightly basis, so they're updated. And then the rankings, there's different rankings that I have that are compiled by Pablo, and then I use the RPI ranking. I have my own RKPI, which is Rich Kern Percentage Index, similar to the RPI. And then this Pablo ranking that's in a typical year would be all Division I, Division II, Division III, and NAIA. This is not a typical year, obviously.
So volleyball fans out there listening, you can get everything volleyball at Rich Kern's website. Tell us what the website is. How do we get to it?
Just go to richkern.com and that'll take you to the main page. You can sign up for a free trial, and it gives you a 5-day free trial. You can look at everything on it. After 5 days, you expire or you renew, and I'm sure you'll renew.
Absolutely. Hey, Bob, let's get into the rankings.
Okay, Rich, listen, we're real excited about you being on. In the past, the NCAA has used, in the deliberations, this Pablo ranking. Can you give us a short description about this Pablo ranking?
Well, first I'll talk about the RPI, because that's one of the things they really use too. The RPI is basically your score, your team scores, 25%, 50% of your opponent's scores, and 25% of your opponent's scores. And it's just a win-loss score. It's nothing else. Whereas Pablo, it goes into it much deeper because it uses the actual set scores. So for the RPI, a close 5-set win is the same as a trounce. Whereas Pablo, each of those sets means a lot. So it's just a much better system. The other thing about Pablo is it takes home court advantage into consideration. And everybody knows that it makes a big difference whether you're playing at home or away. So.
All right, well, Ruth, why don't we take a look at the top 10 from Pablo right now?
Okay, let's take a look at this. Okay.
Well, Rich, those are pretty interesting, those top 10. I think Brian might have some questions about those, because I think he has some different picks there.
Well, actually, I have questions too. Are you sure those were Pablo? Because Pablo this year is not producing the full amount of teams. All they're doing is by rankings within each conference.
I think those were yours.
Yeah, those are yours.
Those are yours.
Yeah. Okay, those are mine. Not necessarily. They're based on Pablo, but they're not
Yes.
strictly Pablo.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Brian.
Oh, Rich, thank you very much for all those years. I don't think you were getting rich. I hope you are now.
No,
But
especially this year.
sincerely, you're one of the reasons the sport grew so much, and we got into the new century with some of the stuff you were doing. This year to me is so interesting. If we have over 300 teams, which is a pretty good sample, and you have about a little around 30 matches per team, and you have about 1/3 of their matches are out of conference, then you can get randomly, hopefully you get a pretty good idea of who's good. But this year, wow, good luck. So what do you see with this? What are your concerns about this? Again, some teams are playing 12 matches, some are 14. So many top matches have been canceled. So what are you seeing with this?
Well, I had to do a lot of cheating on it this year. Normally, I do rely a lot on Pablo because I think it's a pretty good system. This year, that since there's no rankings in between the conferences, it's just strictly within the conference itself. There's no real way to do that. What I did a lot was rely on the AVCA coaches top 25 poll, because that's about the only thing where they look at all the individual conferences, and there just hasn't been enough matches that are going outside of a conference to be able to tell much on those.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. My goodness. And the other thing is 48 teams instead of 64 make it even more tense, and the decisions made by the committee are going to be more difficult. We're going to throw up right now. Ruth is going to put up what you did is ranking the conferences. My concern is, like in basketball, the last 4 in or the first 4 out. We only have 18 at-large bids this year, because 30 would be automatic of the 48. And here, I look at this, and even just with this, there's more than 18 non-winners of the conference. So who do you think, I'll put you on the line, not me, who do you think is out, or who are the last 4 in here, or who are the last 4 out, either way?
Okay, in this case, each one of these conferences has one more team than what I selected in there. So this Big Ten, for instance, I had 6 teams in, and Illinois is the last one out. In this one, UCLA, I have the last one out, Kansas last one out. And
You have those, so you have 6 in the Big Ten?
yes, I do. And
Okay, so that's 5 at large?
yes,
Okay, and then the Pac-10, you got, Pac-12, you have 3 at large?
correct.
Okay, go ahead. I'm just counting. And what do you have for the Big 12?
Okay, the Big 12, there's 3 in, 1 in with 1 out or 1 automatic qualifier.
Yeah, so they got 2 there, right? 2 at
They
large.
got 3 in and 2 at large, yes.
Right.
And ACC has 2 at large. SEC, I only have 1 at large. WCC, I have just Pepperdine at large. And Houston here, over in Big East, Marquette only, and then Rice in the CUSA.
8, 10.
But I don't know who's going to win the conferences for sure. So
Yeah.
that'll depend on this following week.
Well, you got 17. So I thought that's pretty interesting. And that's, it allows for some kind of upset this week. It changes the conference winner, maybe,
With I thought we'd have a real good match between Penn State and Nebraska, but that's been canceled now. So for COVID. So there's just so many matches throughout the season that should have been real key matches to tell you where teams belong, and they just didn't happen.
I think the top 16 is going to be very interesting too. For the viewers, the 16 teams for the first time are going to have a bye. So that should be interesting. You want to say anything about that, or you're comfortable?
Well, no, I'm not comfortable. There's nothing here you can be
Comfortable not
comfortable
saying anything.
It's going to be so much of a crapshoot. Look at what's happening in basketball. There are teams that you never thought would really do that well. UCLA is in the Final Four right now. So who knows what's going to happen here. But these are the teams. Again, I was biased by the AVCA, where the AVCA showed 6 of the top 11 teams were from the Big Ten conference. Whether that's valid or not, I don't know, but that's what they're showing. So I went with that too, also using Pablo rankings to adjust my
Well,
rankings.
volleyball has been more consistent over the years with the top higher seeds winning more than basketball. But all the pundits for men's basketball, all those experts are making all that money, about as much as you and me make. They're completely wrong. The Big Ten basketball just didn't look the way they said it was going to look. So maybe we'll see what happens here with the volleyball. I'm going to turn this over to Ruth and see what she's got for you. She's the tough one, so.
Well, I don't know if I'm the tough one or not. Between him and Mick switching off the graphics every day, it seemed like it was just like what the coaches were having to do every day with their practices. So I've been interested in the fact that to keep everybody safe. And I just had to, we were talking about it before that, one coach afterwards said in basketball said, hey, why don't we just quit testing for COVID and just let the Final Four teams play, and because they deserve to play. All right, so now here's the big question. They're going to one site. Those teams that normally would get picked to play someone geographically located close to them to save money. Do you feel that the NCAA seating committee will take that still into consideration for this year, or will they do like what basketball did?
I don't think they'll take regionalization at all in consideration. I think they'll take the top 48 teams and put them all there. Then they'll pick their top 16 teams and rank those. They don't have to do it in a regional basis like they have before. But one of the things they do try to still do is try to make sure that the top teams in a conference aren't playing each other in the bottom rank early on. So they'll have to do that. And then they'll still try to balance the brackets as best they can. But at least they don't have to worry about the regionalization this time.
Well, I hope you're right on that. Now, Mick has his mathematical, that's what he's called it, his mathematical ranking that we want to pull up, which also has your Rich, your
Oh, I don't want to see it.
all right, here it is. All right, Mick.
So look at this, because this is pretty interesting. Brian and I did a couple of different things, and the one thing we agreed on that was really interesting is we have no bias at all in the numbers under the master coaches, and the PPS means points scored per set, and the EPS is errors per set. And our ranking, not an eye test or anything, strictly by the numbers comes out, or my ranking anyway, strictly by the numbers comes out. Kentucky first, Texas second. And notice Kentucky's the only one scoring 19 points per set. Last year, the last time Stanford won, they were over 20 points per set. The only team that I know of to ever average over the season 20 points per set scored. Wisconsin third at 18.3 sets, and Western Kentucky came up fourth at 18.1 with only 6.5 gives, which is pretty amazing. Brian had his own little poll that he did, and he came up with Western Kentucky fourth also, and I thought that was really interesting. Minnesota is interesting at fifth because they're not scoring as much as everybody else, only 17 points per set, but they're only giving 7 points per set. And Purdue is right there with them. They have shown great improvement here late in the season. Georgia Tech, UCLA, who you don't have in the tournament, but we have, is number 8 in production right now. Notre Dame, 9, Florida 10, BYU 11. Louisville is surprisingly scoring 18.5 points per set, but giving 8.8. Now, the one that, Rich, you're going to really jump on, I'm pretty sure, is Nebraska being 14. And I have said this about Nebraska for a long time this year. Now, they're scoring 17.8 points per set, but the place that they're down is they're giving up 8.5 for the first time in 2 or 3 years. They're giving more points away. So they're ranked 14th by the numbers here. Washington 15th, Penn State 16th. And we have Penn State sneaking in, but Rice is right there with them. I see you had Utah ranked high in the top 10 poll, but we have them at 18. We have Ohio State 19. You had Oregon at 10. We have Oregon at 20, followed by Washington State, Baylor, and Pepperdine. And Pepperdine's interesting. We don't have San Diego getting in by the numbers. We have Pepperdine sneaking in by the numbers. And those would be the teams that we would see matched up over on the left with the Pablo Rich Kern ranking. So what kind of a comment would you have to that, if any?
Well, on Nebraska's, I've seen most of those matches that have been on TV. And one of the things that they've done poorly this year is start the game. They have lost the first set on several of them, and they've just not looked good. And then they get their act together and then do well. So I'm not surprised to see that they've given away a lot of points. But most of those, if you're talking about if it averages out, then it comes out. The other ones, you know, this has been a year I do not like spring ball, to be honest, and I don't spend as much time with volleyball during the spring as even this year as I normally do. I like the fall time much better. So I haven't watched very much volleyball to be able to see all the number of teams that I should have been watching. So I don't really have a good feel for how to compare these with the two systems that we're using here.
The other area that seems the numbers take issue with the conference choices is the ACC. The ACC, by the numbers, shows Georgia Tech being the best team, followed by Notre Dame, then Louisville, then Pittsburgh. We don't have Florida State making the tournament, which is really interesting because Florida State gets ranked pretty high and they haven't performed very well and their numbers aren't very good. The team that I thought was going to come out higher was Washington, higher in the rankings, but their 8.3 errors per set put them down low. And it's interesting that Penn State is in the tournament in your prediction. We felt if they played Wisconsin last week and if they played Nebraska this week, they might have ended up 9-9 in the conference. Now think about that. If they were 9-9 in the conference, would they deserve to be in the tournament? At this point, they're still 9-5 because all 4 of those matches got canceled because of COVID. And we don't have a COVID indicator here or a COVID numerical thing, but we do have the number of sets. In this case, everybody played at least 50 sets, and the highest number of sets was 78, I believe. Several teams in the high 70s, about 4 teams. So it's number of sets is how we determined this. Do you have any takeaways from this at all, Rich, that you think would be helpful to the NCAA in selecting teams? Or
well, in this, with using your points per set, it really depends on who you play and how good you are compared to them. If you're in a conference that's not real strong, but you're a real strong one in that conference, then your points are going to be much better. You're less likely to make the errors, and you're more likely to get the points per set. So you have to kind of compare that with the competition that you're doing. Unfortunately, you don't have that relationship of how the teams in your conference have done against other conferences. So it's just going to be very difficult. The RPI, if you look at that and compare the teams that get into tournaments in the past, it's very strong correlation. They're about their top 56 teams or whatever it is get in normally, and plus the automatic qualifiers. But this year they can't use RPI at all. Pardon?
Yeah, sorry.
This year they can't use RPI at all. It's going to be garbage. So that's just not going to mean anything. And that's one of their key indicators of how they select teams.
Right. To that end, Brian made a statement before we came on, which I thought was pretty good. He used the basketball comparison. We assume conferences are strong either because they're getting television, a lot of television coverage, or their athletes were selected high in the draft. The Big Ten basketball is a great example this year. They were ranked as the top conference in men's basketball, only to end. Pac-12 was ranked very low in men's basketball, and yet it just reversed itself in the tournament that really wasn't true. And you couldn't get a determination because they weren't allowed to play out of conference in the preseason too much. And so it's pretty interesting what's happened in the basketball tournament. Could we see something like this happen in the volleyball tournament?
It's possible, but I don't know if you will see it as much. As you said earlier, there have been more consistencies between the volleyball teams that are at the top and staying at the top. There haven't been a whole lot of teams that have come from way down and make it back up in the top ranks. Baylor may be an exception recently, that has not been real strong in the past and has done much better recently. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of teams coming out of basically nowhere to get to the top.
Well, I was surprised by two things other than Western Kentucky. I was surprised that Baylor ranks so low in points scored and points given. And that, I've lost. And who ranks so, and then UCLA ranks so high. UCLA may be the dark horse in women's volleyball this fall. According to what you see, though, you think they might not get in the tournament. We think they might be a top 8 team, actually.
I did like UCLA a lot, and I wanted to get them in there. And if there had been enough teams in, I would have certainly had them in. If there had been 64, definitely. But I just didn't know that I could get them in there this year and still have some of the other teams that I wanted to get in.
Are we all thinking that Western Kentucky and Rice will both get in the tournament?
My response is, I don't know if Rice is going to get in. Western Kentucky, obviously. Rich, may I add this? We got a little time, so we'll throw it out there. My belief is, if you look at past years and you look at the top teams, the team that, if you look at attack percentage, so you look at hitting percentage for an opponent's hitting percentage, and the gap in between them is always the top team, or almost always is the top team. And so that's what I went by this year. The problem with this year is, again, there's no out of conference play, and your sample sizes could be as little as 14 or 12 matches. So it really doesn't work. You take a team like Western Kentucky, there are 261 points between, which is the highest in the nation, between their hitting percentage for an opponent's hitting percentage, the biggest gap. And I think that the reason I use that, it takes into consideration everything. But but they didn't. You can make an argument that the teams they played, they should have that gap, and they didn't have an out of conference schedule, 10 matches out of conference. I have a lot of beliefs. I think RPI should be used, but not like it's been used in the past. RPI should no mandatory games matches, which means conference matches, should be counted if you're playing a team and you beat them 3-0 and their RPI is lower than yours. So if you beat a team 3-0, it doesn't count if their RPI is down, so it doesn't bring your RPI down. And that goes for your off-season, out of conference schedule too. So you plan on how you plan and who you play makes a difference. If you're going to win 3-0, it'll help you in the RPI. But if you don't, you're going to get hurt. So I would use that as a percentage. The RPI is like 25%, and the gap between teams, the ratio between your hitting percentage and opponent's hitting percentage, like at 75, if you had a full year. But this year, I'm telling you, it's impossible. I have no idea who should, we go with Wisconsin, Kentucky, Texas, Nebraska, Florida's, you throw those teams out there, nobody's going to complain, but I don't know how accurate it is.
Okay,
That's
Brian, you're on a roll here and we're
I'm
out
done.
of time.
I'm done.
So let's go to Mick to talk briefly about next week.
Well, Rich, thank you so much. And this is richkern.com to get in there and learn some things about volleyball. Rich has got so much to offer. Rich, thank you for being on. Next week, we are going to have another really fun session. It's called Cuss and Discuss. Our Cuss and Discuss session next week is going to be after the committee makes the decisions that we're not responsible for making. We will cuss and discuss those decisions and all the things with the tournament, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. We'll have a lot of information for you. So please join us. Back to you, Ruth.
Okay, book your MasterCoaches custom virtual clinic today by heading over to our Instagram, click on our bio, click on virtual clinic link. If you're looking for a fantastic one-day clinic near Abilene, Texas, join us June 5th by registering on www.abileneysa.org. That's Abilene Youth Sports Authority. Remember, our weekly buzz shows are on YouTube. Go directly to our Instagram. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball Master Coaches. Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. A special shout out to our partners, SNA Sports and Baden Sports, and thanks to our content providers, NFHS, JVA, Coaches Insider, and AVCA. Now, let's go to our Buzz and Buzz Reaction digital partner, Dr. John Foreman, who will update us on his most recent podcast.
Thanks, Ruth. And thanks, Rich. Nice to meet you virtually at last. On the podcast, this week coming up will be the second part of the conversation I had with David Gill from Vert, where we talked mainly about pre-match warm-ups and what teams and players should be doing there, but also venture into some other areas like concussions and some other fitness aspects based on the research that Vert does, tracking athlete movements and jumping and all that sort of stuff. So some good, interesting topics in there as always with David. So with that, we'll wrap up this section and move ourselves on into Buzz Reaction.
Thanks for joining us for Buzz Reaction today, and our featured guest will come on in the last 15 minutes as part of our Wanna Be a Guest program, which we will introduce her later in the show. Now, let's hear from our master coaches as they continue their conversation on today's show.
Well, I think this is going to be a wild draw this Sunday when the committee gets together and puts this together. I just would tell you that so many people have so many different ideas. With Rich's stuff that he put out there, that top 10, I mean, they had Oregon at 10. Oregon, I believe, is ranked by the numbers, almost 20 by the numbers. So I'm not sure how people are putting together their group of people getting in. The top 16 will be interesting because they get buys. I think a lot of people are pretty close on those, but Western Kentucky seems to be one, Brian, that you and I agreed on that I'll bet may or may not make that top 16.
Yeah, I think they're going to be, I think the committee will play it safe. Western Kentucky might be the greatest team. I don't know. They're undefeated, but no one knows. It's going to be really, it's going to be tough, but I think the committee will play it as safe as they can and not stay with the conferences that traditionally have been good and hang in there with that.
I think it's interesting, Brian, that the coaches poll, AVCA coaches poll, is so much different than what Rich Kern has or we have in terms of the numbers. And that puts Oregon at 16 and Western Kentucky at 18 right now in their poll. But I agree with you. I think that the committee is going to basically take the teams that are usually in, that traditionally have been successful in the championship, and that's going to overshadow because there's so many question marks. They're gonna err, on the conservative side. And if you look at the past Final Fours, a team has to be in the Final Four usually 3 or 4 times before they end up winning the national championship. I think the committee is going to start looking at that and just say, well, Penn State, got a decent record. They're always in the, in the tournament. They need to be in the tournament. I don't see them going outside of the tradition to make some wild and bold selections. But it'll be interesting, like Mick said.
Well, yeah, I think the committee's going to prove themselves right too, because of the 16 seed. You get a 16. They say these are the top 16. Well, they're already in. They're already with. They've already gotten a bye. So by the time they play, they're in the top 32. They're in. It's an easy position to be in if you do that. You pick the traditionally good teams, and they already won the first round, right?
Right.
They won the first 2 rounds. Hallelujah. They've advanced. So
I really feel like the committee needs to take a look though at Brian, what you talked about, is using your hitting percentage for the season against your positive hitting percentage and the percentage of all the opponents against you. That makes a lot of sense in production. I don't use percentages. I really believe in points scored, but it's a similar concept: points scored and points given up. If you look at it this way, if Kentucky scores 19.1 points per set, that means if the other team gives them 6 points, they
Yep.
win. And
Yep.
if you look at the number of points given, there's not one team in this whole 23 that I outlined that gives less than 6.5 points per set, which means Kentucky's in the best spot to win, as far as I'm concerned, by the numbers. And if you take Minnesota, it's interesting. They don't have the numbers. They're 17.0 and 7 points given, but I have them ranked 5th.
Who's this? Who's this?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay.
Simply because there are only two teams, Kentucky and Western Kentucky, that are giving less than 7 points. So if Minnesota scores 17 and the other team gives them 7, Minnesota's still in the game because they got to win by 2. They got 24. Somebody's going to have to get that 26th point. So I really think the concept of points scored and points against is one that should be taken into consideration for part of the evaluation, for sure, because there's no personal bias here. You can't say, I like the Big Ten, or I like the Pac-10 or Pac-12, or I like the ACC. It's what the teams produce on the court. And I like the percentage concept also. It's what they produced on a regular basis throughout the season.
Yeah, the reason I do the gap in between your hitting percentage and your opponent's hitting percentage is almost every year the top team, the team that wins, is the one that has the biggest gap. You can look historically at that, and they're true. What I was amazed about, and it's unfair this year because the sample size is too small and there's no out of conference play. So again, you can't state that strong enough because these numbers are all over the place. But the two surprise teams were Minnesota and Nebraska in terms of that gap. It was much smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I was surprised about it.
Yeah.
When you talk about Wisconsin, 203 points, percentage points in between, Kentucky 217, but Kentucky's play is not as difficult. And then you look at Western Kentucky at 261. I mean, those point gap is, but again, their competition, would a Penn State be that good if they played Western Kentucky's schedule? And without an out of conference, it's pretty much, it's too difficult.
This is good, Ruth, that you put up the Wednesday reaction buzz, because look at the conferences. Here's my take on this, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but Illinois has no chance. Illinois should not be in the tournament. I think all 6 of the Big Ten teams deserve to be in the tournament. I think all 5 of the Pac-12 teams that are up here deserve to be in the tournament by the numbers. I do not think that Kansas State or Kansas should be in the tournament by the numbers in the Big 12. I do not think Florida State should be in the tournament, but I do think who have we left out there? There's
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech. Well, we got Georgia Teach there, but we need Georgia Tech, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and there's one other one that I've neglected here. Who's the 4th ACC team that I think needs to be in there?
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame is for sure high. They're the 2nd best team and maybe the 3rd best team. Depends. Notre Dame, Louisville, and Pittsburgh, and Georgia Tech is really good also. So those 4 probably get in the tournament. The one I think is up in the air, Missouri may sneak into the tournament, even though they have not fared well against Kentucky or Florida. There's no one else really playing well in the SEC right now at a high level. And I think for the first time, San Diego does not get in the tournament from the WCC. They are 12-4. BYU has only lost 1 match. Pepperdine went all the way to Waco, Texas, lost 3-2 to Baylor, and then split. So they've lost 3 matches, or lost 2 to BYU and beat San Diego. So they've lost 3 matches. I don't think but one team gets out of the American Conference there. Maybe 2, Houston and UCF. UCF is really good. Houston's really good. I don't think Temple gets in there. And I'm thinking whoever wins the Big East, if St. John's were to win the Big East, Creighton might get in. But if Creighton wins, I don't think Marquette or St. John's gets in. That's just a feeling I have. And I do think Conference USA, Western Kentucky, and Rice both get in. Do you guys have it any different, or anybody else getting in there?
You said in USA there's no others except the conference champ.
No,
Yeah.
he thought in Western
No,
Kentucky
I
and
think
Rice.
Western Kentucky and Rice both get in.
Well, you have 21 teams with 18 spots.
I know. Yes, I know. So that's why I say this is going to be really interesting, right? Because I think that's why Missouri's on the bubble. That's why I don't think Kansas or Kansas State gets in. I think Washington State might be on the bubble, but they're right at the top of the conference right now. They just haven't played everybody. That's why I think BYU could be the only team to get in from the WCC because Pepperdine's numbers are not good. And the American Conference may just have its winner, either Central Florida or Houston, maybe Temple, but I don't think they'll win. And maybe only one from the Big East. So that would cut it down to 19, right, Brian? Or maybe, yeah.
19 if you cut those.
Yeah, but the only problem is, Mick, the committee's not looking at the numbers.
Well, I know, and that's the hope with this little program today is maybe we get
If
the
you
committee.
can drop out of a match as a coach, you can say, we're not going to play, we have COVID. Can you do that as a committee member? Can you say,
Well, I
hey,
don't
I
know.
can't do this right now. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, this is the good time to have tracing problems and have to bow out, you know.
Hey, maybe you do it like the challenge. You only get 2 COVADs, and that's it.
That's it. I'm out. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? There's going to be some teams. And again, we do need to say, at least I feel like I need to say, it's not going to happen, but there's no reason. In hindsight, I understand why we went to 48. But now I think we should have 64. They should do 64 team. They could do a site like a tournament, like a club tournament site, and do all of them at the same time. You know, they could do.
Well, that's why we're going to call next week's show "Cuss and Discuss" because we're going to see what the committee does. We'll invite some people on that maybe want to do more than discuss, and
Maybe do a lot of cussing.
Yeah, we should have an open line, Bob. You could just
A call in. Let's have a call in. You got it.
call in, yeah. Well, we could have some pretend coaches call in saying, I'm not going to identify myself with this, and this. We could have some fun with this.
yeah, or we could leave the call and then call in ourselves.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, you're good about dropping out, so we know you'd be the best one.
Hey, Ruth, who's our guest today on the bud?
Oh, this is really exciting. Here we go. Let's bring in our guest today to join in our new format, which allows our guest to be on Buzz Reaction Show for 10 minutes after Master Coaches conversation. Our show usually allows our guests to ask Master Coaches questions, but today our guest will have the opportunity to provide us critical information on the D3 Collegiate Women's event being hosted in Indianapolis next week. Our guest today is Sharon Dingman, head women's coach at the University of Chicago for the past 7 years and previous at Iowa, Illinois State, Butler, and Auburn. Her overall program highlights during her tenure ranked #1 in the nation coaches poll during the regular season, set a new school record for winning percentage at .875, won 23 matches in a row and advanced to the 3rd round of the NCAA championship, AVCA Regional Coach of the Year, and earned 100th victory at University of Chicago and her 500th career win in the 28 campaign. Today, however, she will provide us the latest information on the AVCA D3 Invitational Tournament presented by the United States Marine Corps. Welcome, Sharon.
Well, thank you for having me. This is, I feel like I'm on a like Saturday Night Live shoot off or something.
All right.
There's some good comedic entertainment going on here. And if only the committee would drill down as deep into the statistics to help them make some decisions, that would be great. This is
Okay, so
great.
before you start talking about the D3 update, we'd love to get your opinion on our Master Coaches Weekly Buzz Show.
Well, this is, like I said, this is good. It's entertaining. And obviously you've got some great minds working through what's going to be a very interesting NCAA tournament for Division I. Sadly, Division III's tournament was canceled. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, I think this is such a wonderful opportunity for people to listen to really some of the best minds that we have in our game, through experience and success is really unrivaled on this call right here.
Okay, all
Hey,
right.
Ruth,
So
I think we ought to ask Sharon about her artwork there on the wall. That
Yeah.
would get into this.
If only that were mine. I did take up trying to learn to draw during the pandemic, but that's not me.
okay, so we're anxious and we're ready for your updates for the upcoming event. So go to it for us.
Right. It's so I think in lieu of the NCAA canceling Division III championship, and many conferences in Division III allowing their teams to play this spring, a lot of them conference only. The AVCA really created this tournament just to allow, not really a season-ending tournament, although I think it will be for some of the conferences, but just an opportunity for different people, different conferences, different parts of the country to get together in a tournament style format. So really, you have to give so much credit to the AVCA for taking on this challenge of making this work, obviously in COVID. But very excited about the teams that are going to be there right now. I think there's 7 or 8 teams that are in the top 25 of the AVCA Division III women's poll that are going to be attending. 4 or 5 of the teams attending the tournament were 2019 NCAA participants. So we expect a really good tournament. Competition should be good. And we have really great representation of conferences and areas of the country. So we're looking forward to it. It's really owe a lot to Academy Volleyball. That's whose facility that we'll be using. They're in Indianapolis. The nice thing is they've hosted other events similar to this, college events. They host a D2 event in the fall. They've done that. So, they're great partners with the AVCA to make this tournament work for us.
Who's the team to beat?
I'd have to throw Carthage probably out there. They were a Final Four team in 2019, and with the players they have returning, I think Carthage could end up being our top seed. But the CCIW, which is the College Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin, really is a very strong volleyball conference, and they'll have 5 represented at this tournament. So Elmhurst is a good team, Milliken, and then Transylvania. So University of Kentucky's neighbor right there in Lexington. Trancey's having a great season. So I put up Carthage or Trancey in there right now to
Do you
probably
guys
be the
realize
favorites.
Kentucky may be known as a volleyball state instead of a basketball state? The way things are going?
Whoever would have thought, I coached at Kentucky with Kathy DeBoer back in the late 80s. And we didn't even have high school volleyball in that part of the state. Louisville, of course, did. But over in the eastern part of the state, high school volleyball was just getting going when we were there in the late 80s. So I give that state a lot of credit for the work they've done to, support their high school volleyball and club volleyball scene.
So Sharon, it's pretty interesting that you mentioned Carthage because they also have a very good men's Division III
Yes.
program. So it sounds like they're doing some good things for volleyball up there.
Yeah, their coach. I'm not familiar with the men's coach. I'm familiar with the success their men's program is having. But Leanne Ulmer's been there for a number of years, and she's pretty synonymous with the success of Carthage. And she has a son coaching in D1 volleyball at Oregon, so it's a good volleyball family right there. So that Matt's her son. But they've been a strong program for a number of years. Certainly for the last 7 that I've been at U Chicago, they're one of our rivals. But it'll be fun. It's fun that they have men's and women's going on good there.
So
When
Sharon,
does-
what is your role in the tournament?
Right. So really, Kathy recruited me, and if you've ever worked with or for Kathy, you know you can't say no to her. And that started in
Hey, we
1980
know that.
Exactly. Yeah, that started like in 1987 for me when I started working with her. She just asked me just to be a liaison with the Division III coaches and try to do some recruitment of teams and help get the word out there. And you know that perhaps coming from another D3 coach whose team isn't competing in it, that perhaps I could be a good recruiter for the event. And then really just to be, you know, just an advisor in some ways of what, you know, what's expected from a D3, you know, what do D3 coaches expect a tournament like this should be like, because it is a little bit different than Division I. How, you know, how we play on a weekend, it's not unusual for us to play 4 matches in a weekend, which I think is a little crazy. And I've tried to get away from that. But, you know, so just things like that, more of an advisory role. And then I'll be there just to help make sure everything runs smoothly and that the coaches are, you know, satisfied with how things are going.
So why would the AVCA take on another event?
Right, exactly, because Kathy DeBoer. Well, I just think they, you know, they're really there to serve everybody in the volleyball community.
Okay.
And I think they do a wonderful job. And that's another reason I was eager to jump on board to help with this and support the AVCA, reaching out and doing everything they can for the Division III body of coaches, men's and women's. So that, you know, certainly in this case, it's a women's, and they're also doing the same event for Division II. You know, I think as an organization, they should serve everybody in volleyball, and I do think they do a really wonderful job of doing that. You know, they're not afraid to take something on, that's for sure, and they've got great leadership there. And you know, if it's going to help volleyball, then that's what they should be doing.
Excellent.
Oh.
Brian, you had a question.
Oh, I'm just listening. I'm impressed that that Kathy got somebody besides us this time. You know,
Hey, Brian, that was worth your comment.
Matt Ulmer, you know, it was I gave him his first job.
Oh, cool.
And him and his mom she's tremendous. And he's just like her, very honorable, nice young man who could coach, but she's wonderful and has done such a great job for 30 some years there. And congratulations on your success too. You know, you
Thanks.
don't get a lot of publicity, but my God, you've done
It's-
very well.
Well, thank you. It's been a good transition for me, that's for sure.
And I'm glad
Really
you're
good
doing this
transition.
tournament, so those young women have a chance to perform at a
Yep.
kind of a championship, and it's not forgotten. So thank you.
No, you know, and the AVCA is going to have, they'll have a tournament trophy. They're going to have all tournament team. I mean, they're certainly doing everything, you know, really high class, as we would expect for the AVCA.
So what day, Sharon, does the tournament start?
9th and 10th of April. It's Friday, Saturday. I think it's the
Okay.
9th and 10th. They're 10th and 11th.
When do you go in?
And there will be a link on the AVCA events website that can get you to Baller TV is giving a discount and a subscription if you want to jump on and watch some really good D3 volleyball.
Right.
And then also on that link, there'll be, you know, the results will be real-time results will be up for the tournament as well.
How many matches will the winner play over the 2 days?
Let's see, should be 4. If, you know, we're in that same position, a team could end up canceling the day before the tournament starts. And then that kind of throws everything into craziness. So we're going to do a pool play on Friday, of which it's going to be old school. Mick, you're going to appreciate it. We're going to play 2 out of 3. Right? That's,
Hey,
you know, when I was
love that.
playing when I played at Purdue, we were playing in some of those 2 out of 3s. So we're going to play 2 out of 3 on Friday, just because the number of matches that we want to try to get in. And then Saturday will look more, you know, we'll do a 3 out of 5, and we'll have a gold bracket, silver bracket, and move on down that way. So they should leave with 4 really good matches, and different opponents is certainly one of our goals than what they typically would see.
Wow,
Well, that's exciting. See, that's why people need to get every coach to join the AVCA. We have to support the AVCA because they're the ones taking this lost opportunity and allowing the teams and the players to have an opportunity to play. And if we didn't have the AVCA, this wouldn't be happening, right?
Oh, correct. Well said by, you know, everybody that's talked about the AVCA. I mean, I certainly appreciate Brian's comments about giving the players the opportunities, and that's really what it's about. But yeah, very well said as far as joining. It's our professional organization.
Yeah.
You know, we
So
should support them in every way possible.
MasterCoaches has said this ever since 2 months before the virtual convention. Of course, then DeBoer heard it, and she she got a hold of us, and then we started making presentations also there and a few other things. So, but we honestly believe that most of us were involved in the first national convention for the AVCA, and we're old enough that we can say that. So we would like to see this go. This is the 40th year for our association. And so we were hoping every coach would re-register and show the support, because I think Kathy said they might lose between $800,000 and $1 million this year. And if coaches don't support, they won't get the services that they've been having. And she's certainly been great to produce during a COVID time where other associations cannot. So I want to push that, and I want to thank you again for jumping in there and volunteering to help also.
Well, I really,
Okay.
and I appreciate this time to get the word out, because there's going to be some good competition that weekend. So I do hope people can jump on. Again, Baller TV is giving a discount for the tournament. You can find it through the AVCA website and events. So I do hope people jump on and watch a little Division III volleyball.
Are they allowing any fans?
We're allowing fans based on Marion County, which is where, Indianapolis is located. So there's going to be fans. Although Indiana, I think, is lifting the mask mandate, the event will still be mask mandated. The players will also be wearing masks.
Okay,
So-
Sharon, we have one more question for you, and that is for the viewers, is why we should be lifelong learners.
I thought about that when I read that, and I thought, well, why wouldn't we be? That was my first thought. Well, I think from a coaching perspective is, there's so much that we're in an industry that really does change, and in positive ways. I mean, think about the amount of science that now is in sport, be that the analytical side of science, the physical side of science. I mean, how training has changed. And I mean, you guys will know from being out recruiting, the level of volleyball is just outrageously fun to see right now. And I think if coaches, if they just get closed in their way and they don't want to be a lifelong learner of the sport, I think they're doing a disservice to their student athlete first and foremost. But I also think, like us, I've been doing this 35 plus years, and I certainly don't want boredom to set in, although I don't know why that would ever happen. But, lifelong learning certainly helps prevent that. But, when you've got people like you guys out here providing information and the convention, people should just jump on that. But I'm a believer in lifelong learning in every aspect. That's why at the
Okay,
age of
so I'm putting
59, I'm trying to learn how to draw.
I'm putting one more question in. How do we get more women coaches in Division 1, 2, and 3? This is a 30-second answer because we're running out of time.
There are a lot of really great women coaches in Division III, and I will tell you that was one of the most fun things I ever had. My first NCAA tournament coaches meeting, there was one male of 8 coaches. I just think, we've got to keep pushing for it. We got to get young women involved and get them to see the joy that we all have in this sport. And, it is an amazing profession. They just need to see it. They have some good role models out there. They need to take that risk.
Sharon, thanks very much for coming on. Really
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
And good luck
Thank you
with
so
the
much.
tournament.
Good luck with everything.
Well, our time is up, and thanks, Sharon, for joining us on today's Buzz Reaction. We wish you great success as you move safely into final planning for the 2021 AVCA D3 Invitational Tournament next week. We're excited to know that coaches still want to be lifelong learners. Book your MasterCoaches custom virtual clinic today by heading over to our Instagram. Click on our bio and click on the virtual clinic link. And if you're looking for a fantastic one-day clinic near Abilene, Texas, join us June 5th by registering at AbileneYSA.org. That's Abilene Youth Sports. For those viewers that want to be on our Buzz Reaction guest list, jump over to our VB MasterCoaches Instagram, go to the bio and click on the sign up to be a guest. For those coaches that are interested in our consulting services, please email from our link on our VB MasterCoaches Instagram. Be sure to tell your friends about our weekly news show. And thanks for joining us today, and see you next week on The Buzz.